The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep, resonant hum. Admiral Thomas Reed stepped forward, his shoulders squared beneath his crisp blue uniform. Behind him, Earth's small diplomatic team followed, their faces carefully composed to hide their awe. The chamber stretched before them, a vast circular space with a ceiling that seemed to vanish into darkness. Curved walls displayed real-time projections of swirling galaxies and distant nebulae, a constant reminder of the Council's reach across the stars. 500 seats rose in concentric rings around a central speaking platform. Each seat held a representative from a different world. Some appeared almost human, while others defied description. Crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light, hovering clouds of luminescent gas contained in gravitational fields, massive arthropod creatures whose exoskeletons gleamed under the chamber's lights. "Humans," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You may approach the circle of testimony." Reed led his team forward. Walking beside him, Dr. Eleanor Walsh, Earth's leading xenobiologist, whispered, "Remember, show strength but not aggression. Many species here interpret direct eye contact as a challenge." "Noted," Reed replied quietly as they reached the circular platform in the chamber's center. A beam of blue light descended from above, bathing them in its glow, a scanning field that also served as a universal translator. The Grand Arbiter of the Council rose from the highest tier. Standing 12 feet tall with grayish skin that hung in folds over an elongated frame, the Arbiter's forearms extended in the formal greeting of the Council. "Earth stands before us," the Arbiter's voice boomed. "A world that has only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, yet now seeks recognition from the Council of Worlds. What makes humans believe they deserve a place among civilizations thousands of years their senior?" Reed had rehearsed this moment for weeks. Instead of immediately speaking, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small metallic cube. Whispers rippled through the chamber as he placed it on the floor before him. With a touch of his finger, the cube projected a three-dimensional image that expanded to fill the circle of testimony, a detailed hologram of Earth's solar system. "Honored representatives," Reed began, his voice steady. "Humanity does not come before you claiming superiority or demanding privileges. We come offering partnership and presenting an invitation to learn together." The hologram shifted, highlighting a region in Jupiter's orbit where strange energy readings pulsed. 3 months ago, our scientists discovered an anomaly in our system, a dimensional pocket containing technology none of our experts can identify. We believe it predates human civilization by millions of years. The chamber erupted with noise as hundreds of representatives began speaking at once. The Arbiter raised 2 of his arms and silence fell instantly. "You claim to have found precursor technology?" The Arbiter's tone carried clear disbelief. "Thousands of worlds have fabricated such claims to gain council standing." Reed nodded to Dr. Walsh, who stepped forward holding a small transparent case. Inside floated a fragment of metal that seemed to shift colors as it moved. "We make no claims about the origin of these artifacts," Walsh said. "We only know they respond uniquely to human neurological patterns. When our researchers interface with them, they activate in ways we cannot control or fully understand." She opened the case, carefully removing the fragment. As her fingers touched its surface, the metal began to glow, projecting symbols that hovered in the air around her, complex mathematical equations and star maps that evolved and shifted continuously. The council chamber fell, completely silent. "This is why we seek dialogue," Reed continued into the stunned quiet. "Not because we believe ourselves worthy of your wisdom, but because whatever this technology represents, it responds to humanity in ways that may be valuable to all sentient life." The Arbiter descended from his platform, approaching the circle of testimony, an unprecedented action that caused another wave of murmurs. He extended one long-fingered hand toward the floating symbols, his eyes widening as they reacted to his proximity, becoming more complex. "In 10,000 cycles, I have never witnessed such a phenomenon," the Arbiter said quietly. From the second tier, a representative with scaled skin and vertical pupils stood abruptly. "This is clearly a deception. Humans are known to be ambitious and territorial. This display is meant to secure them privileges beyond their development level." Reed recognized the speaker as Ambassador Krell of the Zaltaran Empire, the faction that had most strongly opposed Earth's petition for counsel. Recognition, if I may, Ambassador. Reed responded, maintaining the diplomatic tone Dr. Walsh had emphasized. We invite any verification the Council wishes to perform. Test the artifacts with your own scientists. Examine our research facilities. Earth has nothing to hide. Krell's scales darkened with anger, but before he could respond, the Arbiter raised all four arms. The human proposal is reasonable, he announced. I appoint a verification committee to return with them to their system. If these findings prove accurate, the Council will reconvene to determine appropriate next steps. As the chamber erupted again with voices, Reed exchanged a glance with Walsh. They had achieved exactly what they'd hoped for, Council attention and a foot in the door of galactic politics. What none of the humans revealed was how the artifacts had been discovered not by chance, but after decrypting an ancient signal that had been directed specifically at Earth. Something out there had been waiting for humanity to reach a certain level of development. Something that the Council either didn't know about or had intentionally kept hidden. 3 weeks later, the Council verification ship exited hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Aboard, Reed and Walsh stood on the observation deck with 5 Council representatives, including the skeptical Ambassador Krell. We'll reach Jupiter's orbit in 6 hours, the ship's commander informed them. Our sensors are already detecting the energy anomaly you described. Krell moved closer to Reed, speaking quietly. You've made a grave mistake, human. Some discoveries should remain buried. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Reed asked, keeping his voice level. It is a reality you are not prepared to face. The precursors vanished for a reason. Before Reed could question him further, alarms blared throughout the ship. The commander rushed to a communication panel, his expression shifting to concern. Multiple vessels have just emerged from hyperspace, he announced. Zaltaran military cruisers, heavily armed. All eyes turned to Krell, whose scales now rippled with patterns that Walsh recognized as signs of anticipation. What is the meaning of this, Ambassador? Demanded the Council's lead scientist, a bioluminescent being named Erix. Protection, Krell replied smoothly. The Zaltaran Empire cannot allow precursor technology to fall into unprepared hands. We will secure these artifacts for proper study by qualified experts. Reed stepped forward. Those artifacts are in Earth territory. Any unauthorized entry into our system will be considered an act of war. Krell's mouth stretched in what might have been a smile. War? Your primitive defenses would last minutes against a single Zaltaran cruiser. We have deployed 6. Communications are being jammed, the commander reported. We cannot contact the Council. Reed touched a small device on his wrist, a subspace communicator designed by Earth's best engineers. It would penetrate the jamming field with a single compressed message to Earth Command. He had just authorized the activation of humanity's true defense system, one they had kept hidden from both the Council and scanning technologies. You seem confident, Admiral, Krell observed, noticing Reed's calm demeanor. Humanity has survived precisely because others underestimate us, Reed replied. A mistake you're about to make. As if on cue, the ship's sensors detected new energy signatures, dozens of them, emerging from concealed positions throughout the asteroid belt and Jupiter's moons. Small, agile Earth vessels appeared using technologies that the Council representatives had never seen before. Impossible, Krell whispered. Your people lack the technical capability to build stealth systems that can hide from our scanners. Actually, Walsh interjected with professional satisfaction, we reversed engineered that technology from the artifacts. We've been studying them for much longer than 3 months. The Earth vessels moved with surprising speed, surrounding the Zaltaran cruisers before they could form a defensive position. Your ships are outnumbered, Krell scoffed. And outgunned, Reed smiled slightly. But not outmaneuvered. You might want to watch closely, Ambassador. You're about to learn why it's unwise to threaten a species that evolved as prey. Before becoming predators, we understand survival better than most. On the observation screens, the Earth vessels executed a synchronized attack pattern that the Zaltaran commanders couldn't predict. Despite their technological superiority, the Zaltaran cruisers couldn't target the smaller, faster Earthships. This is only the beginning, Reed said quietly to the stunned Council representatives. Humanity didn't want to enter galactic politics through conflict, but if forced, we will defend what's ours. The real question is, Will the Council recognize our right to exist as equals? Or will they side with empires that prefer domination to cooperation? As they watched the battle unfold, none of the aliens present could escape one undeniable. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, fists pounded on consoles, and threats were exchanged across the chamber. In the center of the storm, Captain Mira Donovan stood with perfect stillness, her dark uniform contrasting sharply with the pale circular platform where she waited. The blue scanning beam above her cast harsh shadows across her face. "Order!" thundered the Grand Arbiter, all four of his arms raised high. "We will have order in this chamber." Gradually, the noise subsided. Thousands of eyes from hundreds of species focused on the lone human. "Captain Donovan," the Arbiter began, his voice echoing through the vast space. "You have been summoned to explain Earth's actions in the Jupiter engagement. 6 Zaltaran vessels destroyed, 214 casualties, all in violation of Council Directive 5721, which forbids unauthorized military action by probationary members." Donovan's face remained impassive, but her voice carried clearly throughout the chamber. "With respect, Arbiter, Earth was defending itself against unprovoked aggression in its sovereign territory. The Zaltaran fleet entered our system with weapons active and refused all communication attempts." From his elevated position, Ambassador Krell of the Zaltaran Empire rose. His scales had darkened to nearly black with rage. "Lies," he hissed. "Our vessels were conducting authorized Council inspections when they were ambushed by concealed human forces. This proves what we have maintained from the beginning. Humans cannot be trusted." Donovan turned slightly to face him. "Interesting theory, Ambassador. Perhaps you could explain to the Council why your inspection vessels were carrying planet-killer missiles. Weapons banned by Council law for the past 300 years. The chamber erupted again. Planet killers were the most forbidden technology in known space. Their deployment had once wiped out an entire civilization in the Perseus Arm, leaving 12 worlds permanently uninhabitable. Donovan tapped her wrist device. Above the platform, a holographic recording appeared, showing the Zaltaran vessels opening weapon bays to reveal the distinctive silver-blue cylinders of antimatter warheads. This evidence was transmitted to all Council members 6 hours ago. Donovan continued, her voice cutting through the renewed commotion. Along with sensor data confirming these weapons were armed and targeting Earth's major population centers. The Grand Arbiter's expression was unreadable, but the slow, deliberate way he turned toward Krell spoke volumes. "Ambassador, these are grave accusations. If verified, they represent an act of war not just against Earth, but against Council law itself." Krell's scales rippled with patterns that translated as both fury and fear. "This recording is clearly falsified, a desperate attempt by humans to justify their aggression. I demand a full investigation before any conclusions are drawn." "An investigation is already underway," came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. All eyes turned to see Admiral Reed walking in, accompanied by Dr. Walsh and a third figure, a tall, willowy being with translucent skin that revealed pulsing organs beneath. Murmurs spread through the chamber as delegates recognized the newcomer, Varix, the chief archivist of the Council and keeper of its most ancient records. Reed had disappeared with the archivist 3 days earlier, a fact that had contributed to the current tension. "Honored delegates," Reed announced. "With the archivist's permission, we have accessed sealed records dating back to the founding of the Council. What we found explains the Zaltaran Empire's particular interest in the precursor artifacts found in our system." The archivist stepped forward, its voice a melodic whisper that nonetheless carried to every corner of the chamber. "I have verified that these records are authentic and unaltered. They reveal that the Zaltarans have known about the Earth artifacts for over 2,000 years. They have systematically suppressed information about similar findings throughout the galaxy." Krell launched to his feet. "This is absurd. The archivist has clearly been compromised by human influence." "My species is immune to all known forms of coercion, Ambassador," the archivist replied calmly. "As you well know, since your agents have attempted such measures against me 3 times in the past century." That revelation sent another shock through the assembly. Reed stepped into the scanning beam beside Captain Donovan. "We've learned that the Zaltarans fear these artifacts because they can't control them. The technology responds only to specific neural patterns, patterns that happen to match human brain structure. The precursors left these caches throughout the galaxy, Dr. Walsh added, joining her colleagues. They appear to be keys to a network that spans far beyond council space. For reasons we don't yet understand, humans can activate this network while other species cannot. The Grand Arbiter leaned forward. This still does not explain the military confrontation, Admiral. Even if your claims are true, Earth violated protocols by concealing its defense capabilities during inspection. With respect, Arbiter, Reed countered. Earth concealed nothing that was asked about directly. The Council's inspection teams assessed our officially registered military vessels. They never asked if we had other defenses. A low, appreciative murmur ran through some of the delegates. Many races respected technical adherence to rules while finding creative paths around them. Besides, Reed continued, the Zaltoran Empire has concealed its planet killer program for decades. I believe there's a saying in council proceedings about relative infractions? The Arbiter nodded reluctantly. The greater concealment overshadows the lesser. Krell slammed a scaled fist down. This is outrageous. The human delegation twists ancient wisdom to serve their purposes. I move for their immediate expulsion and quarantine of the Earth system. Before voting, the archivist interrupted, delegates should know that the records reveal one more critical fact. The precursors left warnings about an external threat, a threat the Zaltarans have encountered at the edges of their territory but have kept hidden from the Council. The chamber fell completely silent. This threat appears to be the reason the precursor network was established, the archivist continued, a defense system that requires specific neural patterns to activate, patterns the Zaltarans have been trying to synthesize for centuries without success. Captain Donovan stepped forward. Earth does not seek conflict with the Zaltaran Empire or any council member. We seek partnership in understanding this technology and addressing any threat it was designed to counter. The Grand Arbiter considered this for a long moment before responding. These claims must be verified through proper channels. Until then, I order a ceasefire between Earth and Zaltaran forces. No vessel from either world may enter the other's territory without explicit council permission. Reed nodded in acceptance, but Krell was not finished. The humans cannot be allowed free access to the artifacts. If they can truly activate the network, they could gain weapons that would destabilize the entire council. Or they could access a shield that protects us all, countered a delegate from the lower tiers, a representative of the Tholian Collective, a race known for their logical approach to galactic politics. We must consider all possibilities without prejudice. The Arbiter raised a hand for silence. Earth will continue its research under Council supervision. A neutral observation team will be assembled to monitor all interactions with the artifacts. As the terms were finalized, Reed exchanged a glance with Walsh and Donovan. They had achieved their primary objective, buying time while preventing a full-scale Zaltaran attack. But they had also revealed more than they had intended about humanity's connection to the precursor technology. Hours later, in the secured Earth embassy on the Council station, Reed stood before a holographic display showing the latest data from the Jupiter Research Facility. They're accelerating their response, he said quietly to Walsh and Donovan. The Zaltarans won't accept the Arbiter's decision. They'll find another way to eliminate our access to the artifacts. Walsh nodded grimly. The activation sequence is spreading. Whatever these devices were designed to do, they're waking up throughout our solar system. We've detected energy signatures on Mars, Venus, and several moons of Saturn that weren't active before. And beyond our system? Donovan asked. That's where it gets interesting, Walsh replied. We're receiving signals from at least 27 locations outside our solar system, all pointing towards something at the galactic core. Reed's expression darkened. The Zaltorans control most of the territories between here and the core. If these artifacts are leading us there, then we're on a collision course regardless of the Council's peacekeeping efforts, Donovan finished. A soft chime interrupted them as the embassy's security system announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal the archivist, its translucent form gliding silently into the room. What I'm about to share violates my oath of neutrality, the archivist said without preamble, but there are greater principles at stake. The Zaltaran High Command has just received authorization from their Emperor to deploy their entire reserve fleet. They are calling it a training exercise, but the fleet's trajectory will bring it directly to Earth. Reed straightened. How long do we have? 3 days at most. They are moving with unusual haste. Donovan stepped forward. Why are you telling us this? The Council has always maintained strict neutrality in conflicts between members. The observation deck of Earth Defense Station Artemis offered a perfect view of the unfolding disaster. Commander Jack Harlow stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the massive Zaltaran fleet exited hyperspace in perfect formation. Hundreds of warships, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive bronze green of Zaltaran battle armor, arranged themselves in attack position just beyond Mars orbit. They're not even pretending this is a training exercise anymore, remarked Lieutenant Ava Morris, the station's tactical officer. Her fingers moved rapidly over the holographic display, assessing threat levels and defensive options. They don't need to, Harlow replied grimly. The Council's observation team was conveniently recalled yesterday. No witnesses means no official violations. A soft chime announced a priority communication. Admiral Reed's face appeared on the main screen, his expression tense but controlled. Commander, what's your assessment? 217 capital ships, Admiral. At least 500 support vessels. They've positioned themselves to block all direct routes between Earth and the Jupiter Research Facility. Energy readings suggest they've brought their entire planetary assault division. Reed nodded, as expected. They're not taking chances this time. Sir, Harlow asked, what about the Council? Surely they can see this as a direct violation of the ceasefire. The Zaltarans have jammed all outgoing transmissions to Council space. Our embassy on the station has been placed under protective quarantine due to an alleged biohazard leak. Reed's tone made it clear what he thought of that excuse. Convenient timing. Morris muttered, What are your orders, sir? Harlow asked. Reed's image flickered slightly as interference increased. Implement Operation Lighthouse. All personnel not directly involved in defense systems should evacuate to the underground facilities. Dr. Walsh needs another 12 hours to complete the activation sequence. 12 hours? Harlow couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. Admiral, those ships will reach Earth in less than 4. Then we need to slow them down, Commander. The fate of more than just Earth depends on Walsh finishing her work. Reed leaned closer to the camera. Remember your history, Jack. Earth has faced overwhelming odds before. The transmission ended. Harlow turned to Morris, whose dark eyes reflected the same determination he felt. Initiate evacuation protocols, he ordered. Then prepare all defense platforms for maximum output. If we're buying time, let's make every minute count. As Morris relayed the commands, Harlow returned his gaze to the approaching fleet. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this possibility. First, contact with hostile aliens, but no simulation had ever contemplated facing the full might of the galaxy's most powerful empire. In the depths of the Jupiter Research Facility, Dr. Eleanor Walsh worked feverishly at a console surrounded by floating holographic symbols. The chamber around her hummed with energy as more precursor artifacts activated, responding to her presence. Connection established with nodes 7 through 23, reported her assistant, Dr. Marcus Chen. The network is expanding exponentially now. Walsh nodded without looking up. The architecture is becoming clearer. These aren't just communication devices or weapons. They're parts of a much larger system like neurons in a brain. A brain that spans the galaxy, Chen mused. But what's its purpose? That's what we need to find out before an alarm cut her off. Red lights pulsed through the facility. Proximity alert, the security system announced. Multiple vessels approaching. Zaltaran signatures detected, Walsh cursed under her breath. They've split their forces. How many? Chen checked the security feed. 40 capital ships plus escorts. They'll reach us in 20 minutes. We need more time. Walsh's fingers moved faster across the interface. The core activation sequence is only at 67%. If it's interrupted now, the entire network could collapse. What about the defense grid? Not ready. We need a direct neural interface to bring the weapons online, and I can't split my focus right now. Chen was silent for a moment, then straightened his shoulders. I'll do it. Walsh finally looked up. What? I'll interface with the defense systems. My neural patterns are close enough to the optimal range. It might work. Marcus, the last simulation showed a 40% chance of permanent neural damage from an untested interface. We can't risk. We don't have a choice, Eleanor. His voice was calm, resolved. Earth is counting on you to complete the primary activation. Someone else needs to handle defense. Before she could argue further, the facility shuddered as the first long-range shots from the Zaltaron fleet reached Jupiter's orbit. The shields held, but warning indicators flashed across their screens. Chen moved to a separate console across the chamber, where a silver headset rested on a pedestal. He lifted it carefully. "Marcus," Walsh began. He gave her a small smile. "Better odds than Earth has right now. Finish your work, Eleanor. I'll keep them off your back." As Chen placed the headset on his temples, his body went rigid. The facility's lights dimmed momentarily, then brightened as power redirected through new pathways. Around Jupiter, ancient defense systems that had lain dormant for millennia began to awaken. On the bridge of the Zaltoran flagship Inevitable Conquest, Supreme Commander Drax watched with mounting fury as the first wave of his fighters disappeared in flashes of light. "What happened?" he demanded, scales rippling with anger patterns. His tactical officer worked frantically at his station. "Unknown energy weapons, Commander. They appeared out of nowhere. Some kind of cloaked defense system embedded in Jupiter's moons." "Impossible. Our scans showed nothing there." "The systems appear to be activating in sequence, sir. They weren't active to be detected until now," a communication officer interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human facility." Drax straightened his massive frame. "Display it." The main view screen flickered, showing a human male whose eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light. When he spoke, his voice resonated oddly, as though multiple voices were speaking in perfect unison. "Zaltaran vessels, this is your only warning. Withdraw from this system immediately. You face technology beyond your comprehension." Drax snarled. "I do not take orders from primitives. Who are you to challenge the might of the Zaltaran Empire?" The human's expression remained eerily calm. "I am merely the conduit. The network speaks through me, and it remembers your kind. It remembers how you abandoned your duty when the darkness came, how you hid while others fought and died." "What nonsense is this?" Drax demanded, though a flicker of unease passed through him. The ancient records that only the highest levels of Zaltaran leadership could access spoke of such things. "A great darkness. A betrayal, a duty abandoned. You know the truth?" "Commander," the human continued, "your ancestors were guardians once before they chose power over purpose. Now the cycle begins again, and humanity has been chosen to take up the mantle you discarded." Drax slammed his fist down. "Enough! All vessels, target the facility. Maximum weapons." But as his fleet repositioned for attack, the moons of Jupiter began to glow with blinding intensity. Beams of energy lanced out, cutting through Zaltaran shields as if they weren't there. Ships disintegrated or drifted powerless, their systems completely neutralized. "Impossible," Drax whispered, watching as his mighty fleet was decimated in minutes. The human on the screen spoke again. "The network has made its judgment. The Zaltarans are no longer worthy to lead. Return to your empire, Commander. Tell your emperor what you witnessed here. The age of deception is ending." The transmission cut off. Drax stood motionless on his bridge, surrounded by officers awaiting orders as their fleet burned around them. In Earth orbit, the main Zaltaran attack force had begun its final approach when every communication system suddenly activated simultaneously. The same human face that had addressed Commander Drax appeared on screens throughout the fleet, eyes glowing, voice resonating with power that transcended normal speech. The effect was immediate and devastating. Ships that moments before had been in perfect attack formation began breaking ranks, some turning to flee, while others fired desperately at targets that weren't there. Within minutes, the coordinated assault had dissolved into chaos. On Defense Station Artemis, Commander Harlow watched in amazement as the enemy fleet scattered. "What just happened?" he demanded. Lieutenant Morris shook her head in disbelief. "They're retreating, sir. All of them. But we didn't even engage yet." A new communication came through. Admiral Reed, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. "Commander, status report. The Zaltaran fleet is withdrawing, sir. I'm not entirely sure why. We detected a massive energy surge from Jupiter and then this." He gestured to the view screen showing the disorganized retreat. Reed nodded. Dr. Walsh completed the primary activation. "The network is online. That's good news, isn't it, sir?" Reed's hesitation was slight but noticeable. "Yes and no. The network is active, but it's revealed something else. The threat the precursors were preparing for. It's real, Commander, and it's already at the edge of our galaxy. Harlow felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of threat? We don't have a name for them yet. The network refers to them only as the Void. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing behind. According to the data, they've done this before, multiple times throughout galactic history. The council chamber had never been this crowded. Representatives from all 517 member worlds packed the tiered seats, with many minor delegates forced to stand in the aisles. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Captain Mira Donovan stood in the circle of testimony, surrounded by holographic evidence displays. These are not human interpretations or theories, she stated, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. These are direct translations from the precursor network, authenticated by your own archivist. The Void is real, and it has already consumed 12 star systems at the edge of Sector 87. The Grand Arbiter's expression was grave as he studied the data. Unlike previous sessions, today he was joined by the full Council of Elders, 9 ancient beings representing the founding species of the Galactic Alliance. Their presence underscored the severity of the situation. And you claim the Zaltaran Empire has known of this threat for millennia? Asked Elder Toth of the Centauri Collective, her crystalline form refracting light as she moved. Not just known of it, Donovan clarified. Actively facilitated it. The precursor records are clear. The Zaltaran struck a deal with the Void entities during the last cycle. They would identify vulnerable worlds and disable any precursor defenses they discovered in exchange for being spared when the harvesting began. Ambassador Krell surged to his feet, scales nearly black with rage. These accusations are outrageous. Earth invents this phantom threat to justify their illegal activation of unknown technology, then blames the Empire for imaginary conspiracies. The threat is hardly imaginary, Ambassador, came a new voice as the chamber doors opened. All eyes turned to see Dr. Marcus Chen enter, escorted by Admiral Reed. Chen's appearance caused a ripple of murmurs throughout the assembly. His eyes now glowed with the same blue light seen in the transmissions to the Zaltaran fleet, and faint luminescent patterns traced across his skin like circuit pathways. What manner of abomination is this? Krell demanded. The humans have perverted their own kind with forbidden technology. Dr. Chen volunteered to interface with the Precursor Defense Network, Reed explained calmly. The changes to his physiology were unexpected, but have provided direct access to the network's full knowledge base. Chen walked steadily to the circle of testimony, joining Donovan. When he spoke, his voice carried the same resonant quality that had so disturbed the Zaltaran fleet. I stand before you as both human and conduit. The network speaks through me, offering knowledge preserved across millions of years. He turned to face Krell directly. Including the full text of the pact your ancestors made with the entities you call the Great Benefactors, and we name the Void. Krell's reaction was instant and violent. He vaulted over the railing of his delegation's platform, scales shifting to reveal concealed weapons. You will not speak those words, he snarled, launching himself toward Chen. Before security could respond, Chen raised a hand. A pulse of blue energy erupted from his palm, freezing Krell in midair. The Zaltaran hung suspended, unable to move but fully conscious, his eyes wide with fury and fear. Gasps and cries of alarm echoed through the chamber. Many delegates rose to their feet, while others shrank back in their seats. I mean no harm, Chen announced, his voice echoing oddly. But truth must be heard. The Grand Arbiter stepped forward. Release him at once. Weapons and energetic displays are forbidden in the council chamber. Chen lowered his hand and Krell dropped to the floor, immediately surrounded by security personnel. My apologies, Arbiter. The network reacted to his hostile intent automatically. I am still learning to control these capabilities. The Arbiter's expression was stern. This demonstration does nothing to validate your claims, Dr. Chen. Indeed, it raises grave concerns about humanity's control of precursor technology. Then perhaps direct evidence would be more persuasive, Chen replied. He raised both hands and the center of the chamber filled with a three-dimensional star map. This is the current position of the Void Fleet. 27 world-killer vessels approaching from beyond the galactic rim. The map zoomed in, showing massive shadow-black ships larger than any the Council had ever seen. They moved with unnatural precision, leaving empty space where stars should have been. Real-time imagery, Chen continued. The network's sensors extend beyond Council space. These entities will reach the Tholian colonies in approximately 26 days. Their path, the map illuminated a projected course across the galaxy, will bring them through the most populated sectors of Council space, including the homeworlds of 17 elder species. The chamber had fallen completely silent. "This path is not random," Chen said, his voice quieter now. "It's the same path taken in the last cycle 80,000 years ago. The path that somehow spared all major Zaltaran worlds while devastating their rivals." All eyes turned to the Zaltaran delegation, where Krell was being restrained by security officers. His fellow delegates looked stunned, several attempting to access their communication devices, presumably to contact their homeworld for instructions. The Grand Arbiter spoke at last. "If these claims are true, and I emphasize if, then we face an unprecedented crisis. But the Council cannot act on evidence provided solely by Earth, particularly when that evidence is delivered through means we cannot independently verify." Admiral Reed stepped forward. "We anticipated your concerns, Arbiter. That's why we've brought this." He placed a small crystal cube on the floor of the circle, a direct interface to the precursor network, modified to be safely used by any sentient species. "Your own scientists can verify our claims independently." Elder Toth floated closer, her crystalline form humming with interest. "This would be acceptable. Our researchers could confirm the data within hours." "Hours we may not have," Donovan interjected. "Ambassador Krell's reaction suggests the Zaltaran leadership is already aware of our discoveries. They will be implementing contingency plans as we speak." The Arbiter considered this. "What exactly are you suggesting, Captain?" "That the Zaltarans will attempt to disable or destroy any precursor technology they can access before you can verify our claims, including—" She paused, looking directly at Krell, "the Council's own ancestral archive." This statement caused another wave of shock through the chamber. The Ancestral Archive was the most sacred site in Council space, a repository of knowledge predating even the Council itself. It had always been assumed to be of natural origin, a miraculous accident of evolution and technology. "Impossible," the Arbiter stated flatly. "The archive has existed since before the Zaltarans achieved spaceflight." "Because it is not of Zaltaran origin," Chen explained. "It is a precursor nexus point, one of the primary nodes in the defense network. The Zaltarans discovered it early in their development and built their entire civilization around controlling access to it. They've been suppressing its true capabilities for thousands of years." Reed stepped forward again. "We believe they will try to destroy it rather than allow the Council to discover its true purpose. That's why we need immediate action, a joint security force to protect the archive until our claims can be verified." The Arbiter turned to confer with the Council of Elders. Their deliberation was brief but intense, with several animated exchanges visible despite their attempt at privacy. Finally, the Arbiter turned back. "Your request is granted, Admiral. A mixed security detail from neutral member worlds will secure the archive. The Zaltarans will remain under Council observation until this matter is resolved." Krell, still restrained but now permitted to speak, let out a harsh laugh. "You're already too late. Do you think my government would leave such an important asset unprotected? The archive will be cleansed before your ships even leave this station." The Arbiter's eyes narrowed. "Explain yourself, Ambassador." "Why should I? You've already chosen to believe these humans and their fabrications. Perhaps when your precious archive is gone, you'll realize the mistake you've made." Chen suddenly stiffened, his eyes glowing more intensely. "He's right. I'm detecting a massive power buildup at the archive coordinates. Some kind of destabilization field." The Arbiter turned to his communications officer. "Contact archive security immediately. Full lockdown protocols." But Chen shook his head. "Communication channels are being jammed. The attack is already underway." Reed and Donovan exchanged grim looks. This was exactly the scenario they had feared and prepared for. "Grand Arbiter," Reed said formally, "Earth requests emergency activation of the Mutual Defense Pact. We can stop this attack, but we need your authorization to deploy within Council core space." "You have ships near the archive?" The Arbiter seemed shocked. "How is that possible?" "The location is one of the Council's most guarded secrets. The network knew its location," Chen explained simply, "and we anticipated the Zaltarans would take this action." The Arbiter hesitated only briefly. "Authorization granted, Admiral. May the ancestors forgive us if we've misplaced our trust." Reed immediately activated his communication device. Aurora Actual to Firebreak Squadron. Execute Protocol Epsilon. Authentication Code Thermopylae. Throughout the chamber, delegates watched the large display screens as they switched to show the space around the Ancestral Archive, a massive crystalline structure orbiting a binary star system deep in Council. The massive holographic display in Earth Command headquarters showed the approaching Void Fleet in terrifying detail. 27 world killer vessels, each the size of a small moon, moved in perfect formation toward the Tholian border worlds. Behind them stretched empty space where vibrant star systems had once existed, hundreds of worlds reduced to cosmic dust. Admiral Reed stood before the display, surrounded by both human officers and representatives from 32 Council species. In the 2 weeks since the emergency Council session, a joint command structure had been hastily established, with Earth as the reluctant centerpiece. The Void Fleet will reach the Tholian colony of Proxima Centauri in 18 hours, Reed announced, his voice grave. This will be our first and best opportunity to engage them before they penetrate deeper into populated space. A Tholian representative stepped forward, her crystalline body reflecting the light from the display. My people have completed the evacuation of the colony. The planet is now clear of civilians. Reed nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you, Ambassador Vex. Your people's sacrifice will not be forgotten. The massive doors at the far end of the command center slid open as Dr. Chen entered, accompanied by Dr. Walsh. Chen's transformation had progressed further. The luminescent patterns on his skin now covered most of his visible body, and his eyes glowed with constant blue light. Despite these changes, he moved with purpose and spoke with clarity. The network is fully activated, he announced. All defense nodes across the galaxy are now synchronized and ready. What kind of firepower are we talking about? Asked General Rigel of the Arcturian Defense Force. His forearms crossed skeptically across his armored chest. Chen gestured to the display, which shifted to show hundreds of points of light scattered across the galaxy map. Each of these represents a precursor weapon platform. Some are planetary defense systems, others are orbital arrays. Together they form a coordinated network designed specifically to combat the Void. And you're certain they still function after 80,000 years? Rigel pressed. They were designed to last millions of years, Walsh explained. The technology is self-repairing and draws energy directly from subspace. Our tests confirm all systems are operational. Reed turned to the assembled representatives. The plan remains as discussed. The combined fleet will engage the Void vessels at Proxima Centauri, drawing them into range of the activated defense platforms. Once in position, Dr. Chen will initiate the primary attack sequence. And if the weapons fail? Asked a Meridian diplomat, his voice modulated through his breathing apparatus. Then we fall back to Plan B, Reed replied grimly. Conventional assault with everything we've got. It won't be enough to stop them completely, but it might slow their advance while we prepare inner system defenses. Chen shook his head. That won't be necessary. The weapons will work. Your confidence is admirable, Doctor, Rigel rumbled, but some of us prefer contingency planning. It's not confidence, Chen replied simply. It's knowledge. The network remembers the previous cycles. It knows the Void's weaknesses. Before the discussion could continue, an aide rushed into the room, heading directly for Reed. After a brief, hushed conversation, Reed's expression darkened. We have a problem, he announced to the room. Long-range sensors have detected a large Zaltaran battle group moving to intercept the joint fleet. They're on an attack vector. The news sent a ripple of concern through the assembled representatives. Even after all the evidence presented to the Council, they still side with the Void? Ambassador Vex asked incredulously. Not all Zaltarans, Reed clarified. Our intelligence suggests this is a rogue action by hardline military leaders, loyal to Emperor Zarix. The official Zaltaran government has been silent since Ambassador Krell was detained. Dr. Walsh stepped forward. We need to adjust our timetable. If the Zaltarans engage our fleet before the Void arrives, we'll be at a significant disadvantage when facing the real threat. Agreed, Reed said. General Rigel, can your fast attack vessels intercept the Zaltaran force? The Arcturian considered for a moment. Yes, but it would split our defenses. I cannot recommend it. There may be another option, Chen interjected. All eyes turned to him as he approached the display, waving his hand through the hologram to zoom in on a sector near the Zaltaran approach vector. There's a dormant precursor node in this asteroid field. If activated, it could generate a disruption field large enough to delay the Zoltaran fleet without requiring military engagement. Reed studied the location. That's technically within Zoltaran sovereign space. Activating military technology there would violate Council neutrality protocols. With respect, Admiral, the Tholian ambassador cut in. The Zoltarans violated those protocols the moment they deployed toward our joint fleet. The Council has already granted emergency powers for defense against the Void threat. This qualifies. After a moment of consideration, Reed nodded. Dr. Chen, can you activate the node remotely? Yes, but it would be more effective with a direct neural interface on site. The disruption field would be stronger and more precisely targeted. Reed turned to Dr. Walsh. How quickly can we deploy a team? I can go, she replied immediately. With a small support unit. We have a modified jump shuttle that can get us there in under 2 hours. It's too dangerous, Reed objected. If you're captured in Zoltaran space, we don't have time for alternatives, Admiral, Walsh insisted. And I've worked with these systems long enough to manage a basic interface. After a brief hesitation, Reed acquiesced. Take a security detail. At the first sign of trouble, you jump out immediately. That's an order. Walsh nodded crisply. Understood, sir. As she left to prepare, Chen turned to Reed. There's something else you should know, Admiral. The network has been analyzing the Void Fleet's composition, and there's an anomaly. What kind of anomaly? Chen manipulated the display again, zooming in on the lead Void vessel. This ship is different from the others. It's older, and its energy signature is unique. The network identifies it as a command vessel, possibly the only one of its kind. A weakness? General Rigel asked, leaning forward with interest. Potentially, Chen confirmed. If we can destroy or disable this vessel, it may disrupt the entire Void Fleet's coordination. Reed studied the information carefully. Then we adjust our strategy. The main fleet will focus on containing the regular Void vessels while a special strike team targets the command ship. That would be a suicide mission, Rigel observed. Nothing we have can penetrate those defenses directly. Not conventionally, Chen agreed. But there's another option. He hesitated, then continued. The network can temporarily enhance a small vessel with precursor technology, enough to bypass the Void's outer defenses and deliver a targeted strike to its core systems. What's the catch? Reed asked, knowing there had to be one. Chen's glowing eyes met his directly. The process requires a direct neural interface with the pilot. The enhancements would be extensive and irreversible. The implication was clear. Whoever piloted this mission would be transformed, perhaps as drastically as Chen himself. I'll do it, came a voice from the back of the room. All heads turned to see Captain Mira Donovan stepping forward. I've studied the precursor interfaces more than anyone except Dr. Walsh and Dr. Chen. I'm the logical choice. Reed's expression was pained. Mira, you don't have to— Yes, I do, Admiral, she interrupted firmly. This isn't about heroics. It's about qualification. I can do this. After a long moment, Reed nodded. Begin preparations immediately. We launch in 12 hours. As the meeting adjourned and the various representatives departed to prepare their forces, Reed pulled Donovan aside. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Her expression was resolute. You know what's at stake, Tom. Not just Earth, not just the Council, everything. All sentient life in our galaxy. She smiled slightly. Besides, someone needs to show these ancient civilizations that the newcomers know how to fight. 18 hours later, the joint fleet hung in space near Proxima Centauri. A massive assembly of vessels from dozens of worlds formed into a defensive perimeter around the planet. At the center of the formation, Earth's flagship Dauntless served as the command center, with Admiral Reed coordinating the combined forces. Dr. Walsh's team reports success, announced Commander Harlow from his station. The disruption field is active. The Zoltaran fleet has been forced to shut down engines to prevent critical system failures. Reed allowed himself a small measure of relief. At least they wouldn't be fighting on two fronts simultaneously. And Captain Donovan? He asked. Transformation process complete, Chen reported from his position near the neural interface station. Her vessel has been successfully enhanced with precursor technology. She's standing by in Launch Bay 3. Reed nodded. Patch her through to my station. The screen lit up to show Donovan in the cockpit of what had once been a standard fighter craft. Now the vessel pulsed with the same blue energy that emanated from Chen, and Donovan herself had begun to show signs of transformation, faint, luminescent patterns tracing across her face and hands. "How do you feel, Captain?" Reed asked. "Different," she replied, "but focused. The ship and I, we're connected now. I can feel its systems as if they were extensions of my own body."